Hi. So you're going to I'm just going to kind of walk you through the extraction. So you're going to take one of your cups, an empty cup, and you're going to take your wheat germ. You're going to pour the whole thing in because you can see there in the directions it says to place 1 level teaspoon of wheat germ into a cup. So I actually already measured it out. So you've got a teaspoon in that baggie. So pour the whole thing in. Please put the bag back in your supply box. Now, it says to add 20 milliliters of hot tap water. And you can actually measure that. I forgot to point out before, you can get out of your supply box your syringe that you used for the photosynthesis experiment, because it will actually let you measure the amount. So if you have your hot tap water and you pull the syringe back while it's in the water to that 20 mark on the syringe, that'll be 20 milliliters. So you can go ahead and add that in. And then you're going to stir for 3 minutes. And you want to stir it constantly and, as it says, vigorously. Now, obviously, you don't want to stir it so vigorously that you put a whole bunch of it up on the sides. But the idea is we want to stir it up to get it as, as stirred as possible. Now, if it's getting really sticky and goopy to where there's not any liquid in there, you can add a little bit more water to it because you don't want it to be paste. You do want it to have some liquid to it because we want to actually extract the liquid from it. So you can see I didn't have to add any extra water to mine. And as long as you put in the correct amount of water, you should be okay too. You can see it's still kind of liquidy. Now in the directions, it tells you to now add 1 milliliter of detergent mixture. That's your soap. Now on your pipettes, you'll see that there are actually milliliter markings. So it says it's got lines with 1 milliliter, 2 milliliter, 3 milliliter. So what you're going to do is squeeze the bulb here, and when you squeeze it and then put it in the soap mixture, when you let go, it's going to draw soap up into it. So here I can show you what that'll look like. So if you pull more up than you need, so for example, you see I did that here, I've actually got almost 2 milliliters. If that happens, just squeeze it until the level gets back down to that 1 milliliter mark. Okay, so you want it at that 1 milliliter mark. Now once you let go of the bulb, it's going to suck in air. That's okay, but you've got the 1 milliliter, and then you're going to put that in, and you want to squeeze all of it in that you can, and hang on to this because you'll be able to use it in the fruit experiment. And now we're going to stir for 5 minutes, but you do want to stir this much slower and more gently than you did for the first 3 minutes, because we don't want to make bubbles. We want to stir the soap in, but we want to keep it with as few bubbles as possible on the surface. If you stir it really hard, because that is soap we just put in, it's going to make it really bubbly and frothy, and we don't want that. All right, so now you've got your soap all mixed in. You've mixed that for the 5 minutes. And if you do have any foam or bubbles on the surface, you can use your pipette, your dropper, to suck those bubbles off or pop them. Or like it says, you can use like a piece of paper towel. Now on number 5, you can try to pour the water detergent solution into a clean cup, leaving the solids below. But if you look at what you've got, that might be a little difficult. And that's why I provided you with the coffee filters. So this makes it a little easier. If you take the coffee filter and fold it in half, and then in half again, so it's in quarters, okay? And then pop it so that it's like a little cone. All right, so you've made a little cone. So again, move that out of the way. So open it all the way up, fold it open, flat, fold it in half, and then fold it in half again so that it's in quarters. Then hold it and then put your thumb in between the layers, but just so that it's one of the layers, and then the other 3 layers are on the other side. And open it up and you'll have a little cone. Okay. Take that cone and you're going to set that and hold it in your another cup, an empty cup. And now what you can do is pour your wheat germ gooiness into your coffee filter funnel. And now kind of squeeze on it a little bit. You can see that the solids will stay in the filter and your extract of water and soap will come out. It might take a little while, so be patient. Don't squeeze too hard and punch a hole in your coffee filter. You want to squeeze out as much of the liquid as you can, touching as little of the filter as you can, touching as little of the liquid as you can, because you don't want to get too much of your DNA and so forth. All right, you can see mine burst. So I'm going to set that aside. I've got a good amount of my wheat germ water. Now that's going to be a little hard to see anything in. So what I would recommend, just so you've got a little bit more water, is go ahead and add another about 5 milliliters of water to it, just so you've got a little bit of extra volume of water. So you can see, well, actually, if I tip it, it all rolls to one side. Mine is filling that bottom little lip of the cup. Sorry, this bottom little lip of the cup is how much liquid I've got in mine, and that's about the right amount for what we're going to be doing. All right, so here I'm just going to walk you through the fresh fruit procedure. It's similar to the wheat germ procedure, there's just some differences. So you can see here, I've got my berries in here. So if you're using bigger berries like strawberries or something like that, you'll need a few more. But you can see I've got about 6 or 7 of the blueberries in here. Make sure that we've got enough material. So put your fruit into one of your clean cups and take a clean spoon and start squishing your fruit. So what we want to do is smush up the fruit, and with something like blueberries you are going to have the skin, but what you want to do is smush it up until you get something that looks kind of like fruit paste, kind of like a smoothie, without the milk and so forth. It's okay in the case of something like blueberries or so forth that there's still skins in there, because we're going to do the same thing like we did with the wheat germ, and we're going to use a coffee filter to get the chunks out. So that looks about right. So that looks good. So you can see nice and gooey. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add water, and you're going to add an equal volume of water to the fruit. It's not an exact amount like it was with the wheat germ. So you're just going to kind of eyeball it. Just kind of making kind of fruit juice. The idea here is to be able to get all of the fruit DNA and so forth mixed up in the water. I think I'm going to add a little bit more water to mine. Yeah, that's probably good. All right. And for the water here, it doesn't have to be super hot water. It can be kind of warm water. But it doesn't have to be, as hot as your wheat germ water was, because your fruit, unless your fruit's still a little frozen, then you'll probably want hot water. But if your fruit's fresh, then, just kind of a little bit of warm water, warm water that's just a little bit warm will be fine. So you can see mine's kind of, watery, but not super watery. You can see it's still a little chunky and gooey from the blueberries. So now we're going to add in soap, your detergent mixture, and same sort of thing, only this time it's more soap. So you're going to add in twice as much soap because you've got more material this time. At this point, unless you want to do another DNA extraction, you may have a little bit of alcohol left over. You can do that. You can also do your own DNA extractions using isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol, if you can find any. So otherwise you can get rid of the eyedropper. And now you're going to stir gently, just like you did with the wheat germ, for 2 minutes this time instead of 5. That way we can get the detergent, the soap mixed in really well. Again, gently so we don't make lots of bubbles. So we now have our berry and soap mixture, and we're going to do the same thing that we did before. So we're going to fold up our coffee filter. So fold it in half. Fold it in half again and pop it open so that you've got that nice little cone. Now, I'm going to use my big cup just because I can't find my other little cup. But you should have plenty of the little clear cups. So just use another one of your little clear cups. Do the same thing as before. Pour all of that goo in there. If you do have skins or something, feel free to hold them back or even scoop them out. Just make sure you leave as much of that liquid behind as possible. If you scoop the skins out and put them back, it'll make it a little easier for it to filter. And again, it might take some time for it to filter through. You might need to squeeze it a little bit. Nice and clear, no chunks. That nice purple color because I've got the blueberries. And now it's time for the DNA magic. All right, so now we're going to do the actual extraction. So we've got our 2 extracts. We've got, for mine, my wheat germ extract. So this is the wheat germ liquid and soap or detergent that we got out of the filter. And this side is, for me, blueberries. For you, your fruit of your choice. And what I've got is I've got my bottle of ethanol. So mine was down in the freezer. Like it says in the directions, you need to keep this as cold as possible. So if you can, freezer or on ice. If not, the coldest part of your refrigerator, and you need to leave it there until you're ready for it. Is take your syringe or your pipette, fill it up with ethanol. So you can see I've got it in there. And then do the same sort of thing. Tip the cup, and then you're just going to very slowly squeeze the pipette and let the ethanol run down the side. So you're still going to hold it at that angle, because what we want to do is let the ethanol run down and kind of slide over the surface so that it creates that layer. And like I said, you want to do it slowly. We want to take time to do that because we don't want it to mix right now. What we want to do is have the alcohol sit on top so that the DNA can start to precipitate out, to pull out of our mixtures. So you should have a little bit more ethanol than you need, because it does say 15 milliliters. So if you use your pipette, usually you pull up about 3 milliliters. You can see the markings on it per time. So that would be 5 of them. It is easier to do this with a pipette if you still have one left over in your kit than it is to do it with the syringe, just because the syringe, as you might know or have noticed, is not so easy to just push slowly on. All right. So you should be able to see very clearly on this one that layer of the ethanol. So see that there's that red layer, and then there's a clear layer of alcohol ethanol up at the top. So again, let it slowly sit back down. And we wait. Okay, so we've now waited our 15 minutes and it looks like we have some DNA. So it's harder to see in the wheat germ right now, but you can see it here in my blueberry cup. So if we look, you might be able to see some of your DNA depending on what you extracted from. So if you look, you're looking for this goo right here. You see this web that I'm poking with my stick. It should be floating right in between where your alcohol and your solution's at. And so that's what you want to do now, is you want to take your stick and try and pull that DNA up. And you should be able to get kind of a sheet, a globby, gooey sheet of it pulled up to take a look at. So hopefully you can see that coming up out of mine. It'll look kind of like snot, and that is the DNA. So that you're seeing me pull up right there, that's the DNA out of all of those blueberries that I smashed up earlier. Now it's not all of the DNA, but it's a good amount. And then you'll do the same thing with your wheat germ. So try and pull across and find the DNA for that. Okay, so that is how the extraction works. And if you have any questions, obviously, you can ask me in the lab session that we're in right now. All right.